There's already this idea, this allegation that there is anti-conservative bias on the platforms, even though there has been study after study proving, in fact, that often it's liberal voices that are being silenced, particularly minority voices on social media.
We've lost sight of the fact that our own government, and certainly President Trump himself, has dealt in disinformation and normalized disinformation over the past 4 years, to the extent that there is no disincentive for most politicians to traffic in it anymore. And this, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, should not be a partisan issue. Democracy isn't possible without authoritative sources of information.
I would love to see a really robust investment in our public broadcasting so that people have an authoritative source of news to go to in order to understand the nuance of situations.
There's a couple of narratives that Russia uses in order to weaken the U.S.-Ukraine relationship. We see this narrative of Ukraine being a corrupt country coming up over and over again, not only in Russian language media, but in U.S. media as well. We saw this in the lead up to the 2020 election here in the United States, with allegations of corruption by Hunter Biden related to Burisma. And we know those came from Russia.
In Russia, the lines are often blurred. If you look at things like Fancy Bear and the cyber attacks that happened on the DNC, those lines aren't as clear. I think we can confidently say, in this case especially, that it was state-sponsored meddling. I think the goal, in contrast to Soviet propaganda, is just to inspire distrust, dismay, discontent among Western societies, therefore making it more difficult for Western governments to govern.
I would like to see forced transparency for the platforms. I want to know how much hate speech they're taking down, how much targeted harassment, how many reports they get from users and what their response is, how different new mechanisms in the infrastructure of the platform are affecting user behavior. We might see racist tropes about name it. I mean, Ilhan Omar is a favorite for this sort of racist sexual rhetoric that's compounded. The idea that she married her brother to immigrate to the United States. Rather than write the word bitch, they will use an exclamation point instead of an I. Or they will use visual memes to avoid textual detection. So one of the things that I get pretty frequently as a woman in my 30s without children is I get sent pictures of empty egg cartons, which are meant to remind me that my fertility is waning.
Critical race theory has become one of those hot button issues that the Republicans and other, disinformers who are engaged in disinformation for profit, frankly, there are plenty of, media outlets that are making money off of this too, have seized on.
Disinformation affects us in real life too, whether it's about people who aren't taking the COVID vaccine or people who are causing these public safety threats at public buildings, or beyond, people who are deciding now to take medicine meant for livestock and animals instead of the COVID vaccine. And I think in terms of our response, we have absolutely not done enough on any level. We've not seen enough recognition from consecutive administrations, both the Trump administration, certainly, which used disinformation, and the Biden administration, which is trying to clean up after what the Trump administration did.
There's a delicate balance between preserving freedom of speech and countering disinformation.